Welcome to Crimson Guitars and welcome to the chaos. This is the second part of a neck reset, a particularly interesting neck reset because the guitar is worth about £30,000. One of the earliest off the factory floor ever Gretsch 6120Ts. It's the Chet Atkins signature model. This was number 14 off the line. It's a historically significant instrument and it's in very good condition, except for the fact that, well, currently it's in two pieces. The neck angle is wrong, and this thing happens on these Gretsches quite a lot of the time. Later models have got screws put in the sides and in various places. Thankfully this didn't happen, and if you want to see the process of me steaming this neck off, that is in the first video, links in the description. I removed a fret, put some heated rods down and prayed, and then applied pressure, and it worked. The process of how they built this neck joint gave me pause, and I've actually taken a couple of weeks off to run some experiments and cogitate. The traditional way of fixing this would be to essentially strip out a lot of what we already have, put in a brand new piece of wood and completely create a brand new joint. I don't think that is either necessary or historically true to the instrument or to the way that they built them. We have got a non-flat surface, the end of the guitar. The whole thing is compressed under tension, and we've got a very, very non-flat surface that basically mates up against it. You can see where that surface is bowed in, and this is so that at the ends it matches nicely so that it looks perfect, but the actual amount of physical mating that is going on, I was trying to find a different word to use there, but hey ho, would have been relatively minimal when the instrument was originally built. Hell, we're gluing onto a finished part of the guitar as well, which also makes that area of the glue joint less cohesive, shall we say. The back of that neck joint is bowed in. It's been hand fitted and it is not straight. You can also see these very, very cool shims. We've got a shim on the right hand side, we've got a shim on the left hand side, you've got a shim on the left and on the right. Here is where I was very impressed by the process. The shims that they used were fairly thick, 0.8 of a millimeter, maybe even a millimeter thick mahogany, which is very plastic. It's got a lot of give in it. So they made their joint and then they stuffed it with something that was going to give and mold itself to the available space. That got me thinking. What I am going to do is fix the break angle, which is going to be relatively simple. You've probably already watched people doing this. Sandpaper on the end, angle it back a little bit, reshape the dovetail. I need to clean up a little bit of extraneous glue and nonsense because I do need a good joint. The process though that I'm going to do that is different is I'm going to create a this sounds like I'm cheating. I'm going to create a dust and glue mix. It really sounds naughty. Fight me in the comments. I'm going to create a dust and glue mix. I'm going to fill the sides of the cavity in the same way that the original craftsmen and women at Gretsch filled with this plastic or mahogany that's got a give. I need to stop using the word plastic. I'm going to install the neck with some cling film to push that fill exactly where it needs to be. Once it's set, I take the neck back out again. I will sand and tidy up a little bit the dust and glue faces where I want to glue the neck in, and what I'm going to end up having is a neck joint that is far more solid than the original one. There's going to be far more contact In fact, there's going to be near total contact between the neck and the body, which will improve the sound and the transfer. But what I'm not doing is going in with a chisel and destroying the joint that is currently there, that was made in the 50s? Tell me, 50s, Sam? 1950? 1954, thank you very much. Sam is my number memory guy, because I suck at that. This process is going to end up with a better neck joint, a better sounding guitar, one that is going to last for the ages, but also one that people will be able to disassemble and look at and say, well, that was exactly how they made it. The whole time I'm doing this, I keep on thinking about the fact that carpenters, makers, people who create stuff don't necessarily care, or stuff like this, don't necessarily care what the actual measurement that they are working to is. You could draw 2 lines on a stick and build an entire house based on those 2 arbitrary lines. This is exactly what we've got here. I've not got a single straight line. I don't have a single accurate angle, but the 2 parts are going to meld together with perfection if I do my job properly. The dust and glue mix is going to be very, very dry, very solid. It's going to be like 90% wood dust. In fact, it's probably going to have more wood than glue, and the same sort of amount of wood versus cellulose as you would get in an actual piece of wood. So yeah, it's going to be good. Should have done this earlier while it was still a bit more malleable. The rear of the dovetail does actually appear to be touching, which is good. Still a relatively solid joint without that, with the glue gone. I now need to do the actual job, which is cant it back a little bit. So I'm going to remove a little bit of material just there and yeah, do the sandpaper. I'd forgotten to clean up the end. No pressure, no pressure, just holding it straight. There's a little bit of glue still on the top of the finish here. Essentially using the end of the file as a as an engineer's scraper. Being very careful to stay within the footprint of the neck. I have a fairly substantial difference that I'm going for, so I'm going to attack it in a slightly different way. And then with some coarse paper on this crimson sanding stick, I'm just going to carefully sand to the line. That and a combination of files, and I'll get the bulk of material away. Basically the bridge is slammed down as low as it will go. If I change the angle by a millimeter here, I'll get 2 or 3 at the other end. I love how they've done this. You've got a little steel bar in there, the screw goes and sits in that, and then as you turn it to adjust the height of your bridge, obviously the string tension pushes down and your bolt doesn't necessarily move in. The things we had to do before epoxy. Yep. I'm still got a little bit of a way to go, but I'm in the right ballpark. And now I'm just using the sandpaper trick to finesse things. It's such a simple thing, but it still amazes me that it works so well. Hey Sam, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Fantastic, you're being a vice, aren't you?
I'm a vice.
Fantastic. Okay, so there's a little bit of tidying up. There's obviously dust and bits and pieces in there. The joint is almost perfect. The break angle has been done. And do you know what? I'm going to go and have a quick lie down. Yeah, the stress. Next day, clear ahead, all good. And I've also jury-rigged up a nice soft holder in my vise for this thing. Microfiber cloths, Crimson merch. What I want to do in order to get the absolute best joint possible is I'm going to scrape away the finish from the inside where that's going to be gluing against. There's no point in not doing the best job that I can at this point. Gretsch didn't get rid of the finish, but we should. And as I discovered on the side of the neck, this is a very, very delicate, very crumbly old nitro, of course. So it comes away easily. On to the next stage. Let's repair a beautiful, valuable and historically significant guitar using cellotape. Love my life. These are the holes where I drilled through one of the fret slots to introduce heat. Masking tape. This is straight out of our dust extractors. I used to do this with sand as a kid and put it through my socks. I don't ever recall my mother asking me why my socks were always full of sand. Alkaline professional glue, and I'm going to mix up a very dry mix of this stuff. I want as much wood as possible. Now this is where there's a little bit of guesswork involved. I have no clue how much I'm actually going to need. I might need to go in and use a second application at some, well, another day. We shall see. Filling the gaps. I do know that the edges here are mostly fairly tight fitting. Yeah, sometimes you just have to stick your finger in there. I don't want too much of this to spurt out onto the top of the guitar. If I can help it, I'd rather have a second application. This is where Master Luthier discovers he should have used a release agent. And frankly, I'd be calling for a release agent. That's my covert assassination squad. Hey, fantastic. Okay. You can see where it's a little bit rough in places, but it's compressed, it's pushed, it's done the whole thing. I'm going to add a little bit more with a slightly wetter mix. There we go. I am going to have to come in and sand once this is fully dry. I'm going to need to sand the surface so that it is a good gluing surface. I couldn't find another word for surface. Right, so this I'm going to leave for 5 or 10 minutes, no more. Hell, 4 or 5 minutes, no more. Take it out, and then it has to sit and cure. Maybe a couple of days. Okay, a few days later for it to cure, and this is what I'm after. I want that clamping caul to match the curve at the end of the heel, but also the swoop up. So chop, carve, or carve, chop. A little bit of super glue. I don't want to use loads of super glue because I am going to be using this caul pretty much immediately, and I don't want to damage the guitar, of course. I will probably not use this again on any guitar, or if I do, I'll have to reshape it. It is so much better than fiddling around with random little bits and pieces. Sand all the corners off, make sure that there's nothing that could damage the guitar, conceivably. Finally, I'm just going to chop off a clamping point that pushes the piece of wood in. Okay, get it up just, there you go, yep. Just a little bit of tension, not the whole thing. At this point, if I drop the clamp on the guitar and damage things, that would be an issue. That's where I want my clamp. We're good. Actually, I need more than two. I need another two on this side. This is all stuff that you need to find out before you glue up. And I'm not going to film the gluing process. I'm not sure what my heart can deal with the stress. I've got these blocks here which are just a little bit higher than the screw that comes out of the end. I just want to cover these with tissue out of an overabundance of caution, and then we're going to slap on some glue and be done. Okay, so test clamping achieved. We've done this. Sam doesn't want to let go of the guitar. He's thinking
it's a bit top heavy.
Okay. It's clamped to a really heavy clamp at the moment. Okay, test clamp achieved. Sam and I are going to film this whole process. We're just going to have a camera set up and you can watch the whole thing. We'll speed through. And if something sort of goes wrong, nothing's going to go wrong. We are prepared. Again, I don't want too much cleanup. So it's one of those things. We've got some cork there to act as a safeguard against dropping the clamp, because that's a concern that came out earlier. Okay, a little bit of squeeze out there. We are going to be doing some minor finish touch-up after the fact. I know what I'm doing. Okay, Sam is supporting the guitar just in case anything goes wrong. That's now locked in place by the first caul. Move the clamp in. We're good. Okay. These two cauls go on either side of the bolt sticking out of the rear end of this beautiful thing. And I have a little bit of tension. And as much as possible. Okay. It is hollow after all. If I put huge amounts of pressure between the strap buttons, it might explode. Implode? Disaster. Disaster. Okay. No squeeze out, which is good. There's a little bit of squeeze out on this side. There's a little bit of squeeze out on this side, but that's fine. The real question that I have is, do you think that this is a valid process? It's to somebody who just inlays more wood into the guitar and then cuts a joint. Cutting that joint is relatively straightforward and easy and gets a very good result. The only reason we changed this was to try and keep as much of the original instrument intact as possible, including the original joint. They used soft wood that had some give, and that conformed to the crappy joint they had made. Anyway, dark room is required. Maybe some coffee. I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching. We'll be doing a level crown polish, Luthier's teardown, etc. of this in another video coming up soon. Goodbye.